There were 1,000 ways to die on Varric 9. Kale planned to use every one of them on them. The escape pod slammed into Varric 9 like a meteor, carving a scar of fire through its bone-colored sky. Smoke rose from twisted metal, hissing against the red sands. The planet groaned, as if annoyed by yet another corpse being added to its collection. But this corpse moved. Lieutenant Kale Draven crawled from the wreckage, coughing blood, his ears ringing. Every muscle screamed from the impact. His uniform was scorched, torn at the shoulder, his skin blackened with ash and caked in dried blood. He looked around, no weapons, no coms, just the crash site, and a knife barely held together by a cracked poly-dash grip dot. The only thing working was his heartbeat, and even that sounded pissed off. The sky overhead was sickly green, swirling with storm clouds pregnant with acid rain. Jagged ridges loomed in the distance like the ribs of a dead god. Somewhere out there, war drums began to thrum a deep, rhythmic beat that echoed across the canyons. They knew he was here. Varric 9 was no ordinary planet. It was the galaxy's dumping ground for the worst of the worst, a lawless, exiled world for alien warlords, failed experiments, and feral mercenaries who even their own species feared. Kale staggered to his feet and whispered to no one. Great. A whole planet that wants me dead. The galaxy had assumed he died months ago, captured in a battle above the Dister Belt, taken alive, experimented on, then left to rot in a floating prison. But something or someone had sabotaged the prison transport and dropped him here. Instead, it didn't matter. All that mattered now was this. He was alone, and they were coming. A small recon drone buzzed overhead, scanning the wreckage. Kale didn't flinch. He hurled a shard of shrapnel through the air. It punched through the drone's optic core. Sparks rained. The thing spun and crashed beside him. Suspense built. He knew how this would play out. The clans would see the signal. Every warlord would send their best hunters. Not out of fear but sport, a lone human on a death world. Easy prey. But that was their first mistake, because they didn't know what humanity became when cornered. Kale limped into the bone forest, where petrified trees reached skyward like sharpened spears. He used the drone's wreckage to craft a crude bandage and slipped deeper into the shadows. Every step brought new pain. Every breath was glass, and yet his eyes burned with something worse than rage purpose. He wouldn't just survive, he would make them regret ever bringing him here. The landscape is harsh and alien red deserts, acid storms, bones taller than buildings. Kale's movements are brutal, but methodical. Every scrape, every cut tells a story of survival. Alien beasts howl in the distance, and strange green lightning cracks the sky like the world itself is alive and watching. The first one came to hunt, he left in pieces. Kale made sure of that. The bone forest whispered in languages older than time. The wind slithered through petrified trunks, brushing against hollow skulls impaled on branches like forgotten trophies. Every step Kale took left a trail of blood. But he kept walking. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was bait. Above, black-winged carrion beasts circled silently, sensing death. Somewhere behind him, clawed feet scraped stone. Closer, Kale ducked into a fissure in the rock, his knife clutched in one hand, a splintered femur sharpened to a point in the other. His breath came shallow, but his eyes were fire. Then he heard it, a chittering snarl, wet and guttural, like bone grinding against rusted metal. The first hunter had arrived. Visuals from the shadows. Emerged a massive alien with 4 legs, 2 arms, and a head like a plated skull. It had mandibles coated in resin, armor fused to its flesh, and a pulsating collar that glowed with each heartbeat, marking it as part of Warlord Rozek's Blood clan. It carried a plasma spear, taller than Kale, and a curved blade designed for skinning. The hunter stopped, sniffing the air. Kale was nowhere to be seen. Or so it thought. Kale struck from above, dropping from a dead tree branch like a whisper of death. His knife plunged into the hunter's side. Between fused plates, the thing roared and flailed, its tail smashing into Kale's ribs. The world spun, but Kale held on, driving the blade deeper. Twisting, they fell together into the dust. The beast rolled. Kale rolled with it. Then silence. Only one shape stood up. Kale ripped the knife free and spat blood. Suspense intensifies. He stumbled back, staring at the alien body twitching in the sand. The kill wasn't clean. It was messy, loud. Now they'd know. He dragged the corpse deeper into the rocks and stripped it. Armor, too bulky. Spear, too loud. But the blade, it was serrated obsidian, curved like a fang. He took it, sheathed it beside his own, and then he found it. A cumbead in the creature's skull socket. Still active. Kale pressed it to his ear. He heard laughter, dozens of voices, speaking in a dialect he'd learned during captivity. First, blood has been spilled. The human resists. Good. This will be fun. Let the hunt begin. Kale's eyes narrowed. They weren't worried. Not yet, but they would be. Visuals. The camera would pan wide across the cliffs and forests as Kale stands over his first kill, his silhouette lit by the setting blood-red sun. Behind him, storm churned like smoke. Distant war horns echoed in reply to the kill. They broke his body in the labs, but they forgot the mind is where humans sharpen their blades. Nightfall on Varric 9 didn't bring darkness. It brought madness. The moon was fractured, a shattered crescent that bled green light over the land. The bone forest came alive with shrieks, not of life, but of memories. Kale lay in a shallow cave, his knife balanced across his fingers, spinning in slow, silent rhythm. Each rotation was a countdown not for his survival but for their deaths. He hadn't slept in 62 hours, he didn't plan to sleep. Brought them back. Flashback. The sterile chambers, the restraints cutting into bone, the voices behind mirrored glass. Alien scientists dissecting everything. He was not to destroy him, but to understand him. Why do they resist pain? Why do they refuse to break? How does their neural structure survive trauma this intense? Every test came with agony. But every scream taught Kale something too about himself and about them. He'd learned their anatomy, their language, their arrogance. And now, he would turn their lessons against them. A movement outside the cave. Kale went still. The wind blew oddly wrong. The trees didn't sway. The whispers stopped. Even the insects fell silent. Then something stepped inside. Tall, thin, gliding like smoke. Not a hunter, a seer. Kale had heard the legends, wrath-like figures who roamed the exile worlds, gathering knowledge for the warlords. No weapons, just minds. Minds sharp enough to kill. You are different, the figure said softly, voice like dry leaves. But you will break. They all do. Kale didn't speak. He didn't move. The figure stepped closer. A glowing orb hovered above its palm. It pulsed to sand. Kale screamed. Suspense hits. The orb triggered buried memories, forcing his mind open like a pry bar to the skull. Kale saw the experiments again, this time faster, clearer. The pain wasn't just remembered, it was relived. But the seer made one mistake. It lingered. Kale grabbed a knife beside him and slashed straight into the orb. It burst in a scream of light. The seer staggered back, hands smoking. It turned to run. Kale didn't let it. He tackled the creature, driving both of them down the cliffside into a nest of broken alien bones. The fall knocked his breath out, but not his rage. They fought in silence, blades and fists in the red dust. Finally, Kale drove the obsidian knife into the seer's chest. Its last words, "They fear you now." Kale wiped the blade clean. "They should." Shards of green light explode from the orb as Kale resists. Psychic torment. The flashbacks flicker like glitching film, visceral, disjointed, painful. The cave glows with eerie bioluminescent moss as the seer dies slowly. Its eyes watching Kale like a prophet, watching a storm come alive. 10,000 killers lit the fires of war. Kale lit a fuse. Smoke twisted into the sky in long, lazy tendrils, signals sent from every warlord across Varric 9. Blood clans were answering the call. Ancient oaths inked in marrow being reignited. Kale had killed too many, too loudly. Now, they weren't hunting him for sport. They were mobilizing for war. From atop the jagged ridge known as the Scarred Spine, Kale watched their camps assemble like a spreading infection. Dozens of banners snapped in the poisonous wind, each marked with skulls, teeth, and glowing brands. Creatures from 20 species, mercenaries, war beasts, and battle priests. The planet wasn't just responding, it was unifying. Warlord Ra had returned. Razek was more than a butcher. He was the reason Varric 9 existed, a warlord so savage the galaxy exiled him and his followers to die. But they didn't die. They built a kingdom in hell. Kale slid his stolen spyglass back into its pouch. His shoulder was infected, his ribs cracked, his feet torn, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. Good, he muttered. He wasn't looking to survive anymore. He was looking to be heard. Flashback, prison cell. Months ago, Kale in chains. A scientist asks mockingly, "You think Earth will come for you?" Kale, broken and bloodied, replies, "They don't need to. I'm enough." Kale descended into the ravine below the ridge, moving like shadow and smoke. Along the path, he spotted a detachment, 6 aliens marching with crates of munitions toward Razek's camp. Guarded, arrogant, loud. They didn't see him until the first 2 collapsed. Throats opened like zippers. The rest panicked. Too late, he moved like fire slashing through tendons, disarming them, using terrain like a weapon. Within 30 seconds, it was over. Kale crouched over the crates. Bombs, charges, plasma mines. "Thank you," he whispered. Kale moves through the camp's perimeter, under red lightning. The world looks cracked and scorched. Like hell opened a second mouth. He plants explosives in fuel depots, shoves detonation triggers into the mouths of enemy corpses, and carves a human message into the walls with a plasma torch. One is enough. Scene. Twist. As he moves toward the exit tunnel, Kale hears movement. He spins, knife raised, but it's not a soldier, it's a child. Alien, small eyes, wide with terror. Holding a bowl of food. They lock eyes. The child doesn't scream. Kale lowers his weapon. Wordlessly, he tosses a ration bar from his belt. "Eat this instead." He disappears into the shadows. Explosion, top the war camp, ignites in a chain of thunder and smoke. Screams, chaos, fury. The entire ridge shakes as ammo stores erupt. Warlord Razek watches from a distant tower, unmoving, except for the slow curl of his clawed fingers. Find him. Drag him here alive. I want his eyes too. Watch as we burn Earth. His knife didn't speak in metal. It spoke in memory, and every kill echoed louder than the last. The jungle near the Shatterfang cliffs reeked of ozone and blood. Rain hissed against scorched leaves, soaking ash-covered earth where charred bodies still smoldered. The fires Kale had started the night before were still dying, and the screams they birthed still echoed in the branches. But Kale was already gone, moving, bleeding. Hunting, his arm was wrapped in dirty bandages. His ribs, still wrapped with cloth from a fallen warpriest's robe, his obsidian knife, now stained black and chipped at the edge, hung from his belt like a relic. It wasn't just a tool anymore, it was a reminder of who he used to be, of who he would never be again. Flashback, interrogation pod. Orbiting war. Barge. Kale, strapped to a metal frame. An alien interrogator speaks. Tell us what drives you. Kale, broken-jawed, bloody. I don't know, but when I find it, you'll feel it too. A new threat stalks him, now a bonded killer, bred by the clans for one purpose: eliminating anomalies. It moves faster than anything he's seen. It doesn't speak. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't feel. Kale knows it's close. He sets traps in the jungle, deadfall spikes, bond trigger snares, even a mine from a stolen crate. He doesn't expect it to kill the thing. He just wants to slow it down. He needs time to find the seer. Hive. The minds behind the clans, the ones who whisper fear into the ears of warlords. He plans to carve the hive out of the cliffs and leave it burning. One war at a time. Unexpected. Reunion. As Kale crosses a ravine, he finds a familiar face, the young alien defector from before. She's bruised, older now, eyes sharp with anger and awe. You're still alive, she says. Not for lack of trying, he mutters. I thought you were a myth. Kale tightens the bandage around his arm. I'm a man with a knife and a reason. That's enough. She offers him intelligence locations of hive seers, troop movements, even Rozek's hidden retreat. Why help me? Kale asks. She doesn't answer, just looks at his blade. Because they fear you more than they fear death. Kale and the defector navigate steaming pits and dead alien machines. Shadows flickering in green lightning. The jungle pulses with bioluminescent thorns. Strange beasts watch them from the trees but do not strike. Even nature seems to hesitate. The bonded killer appears once its form, a blur of silver tendons and bone-forged blades. But Kale vanishes before it can strike. Kale stumbles during a patrol. Fevered. The infection is getting worse. The defector offers him aid, but Kale waves her off. I'm not here to live forever. Just long enough. Then, in the distance, a wailing siren. The hive has noticed him. He smiles. They built their fortress to keep danger out. They never imagined the danger would climb inside with a knife and a grudge. The hollow cliffs rose like rotten teeth from the scorched plains. Twisted towers of black stone fused with alien technology and ancient bone. Lightning curled around their peaks, and at their base, a lake of slow-moving acids shimmered with trapped skeletons. Atop that fortress, the hive seers sat on thrones, made of silence, whispering into the minds of warlords, sowing fear like seed. Until Kale came to uproot them. Kale crouched in the shadow of a collapsed bridge, watching sentries patrol along the cliff's edge. They wore armored robes, their faces hidden by bone masks, their movements precise. Above them, winged drones circled like vultures. Beside him, the young defector whispered, "There are tunnels. Below, old, forgotten." He nodded. The front she stared, confused, but it's suicide. He looked down at his blade, scratched, scorched, but still sharp. I've got a message to deliver. Flashback, experimental lab. Months ago, Kale sits in a psych chamber, surrounded by whispering seers. They flood his mind with pain, illusions, fear. He doesn't scream. He remembers each whisper, each technique, each pattern of their mental web. And now he's bringing it back to them. Suspense builds. Kale charges the fortress head-on, triggering every alarm. Sirens wail, turrets swivel, beasts uncoil from cages. But Kale moves like vengeance, unleashed using the chaos to plant explosives, reroute power, and cripple defenses. His every movement is a scalpel against a god's throat. As soldiers flood toward him, the ground beneath them explodes. The tunnels breached by the defector collapse inward, drawing the cliffs into fire, and ash. Kale dives into the breach, disappearing into the smoke. Inside the hive, it's dark and cold. Hallways are carved into bone and steel, pulsing with strange veins. Echoes bounce in unnatural directions. Voices crawl along the walls. The seers are waiting. Bioluminescent veins illuminate the tunnels like capillaries of a sleeping beast. Seers float silently above the ground, cloaked in robes of flesh and metal. Their eyes glow white-blue as they launch psychic waves through the air, causing visions of Kale's family, earth burning, Kale's own death. Kale walks through it, unflinching. His memories are armor now. Seers surround him, chanting in a tongue designed to break lesser minds. Kale doesn't stop. He throws a plasma detonator at the ceiling, collapsing their psychic chamber, cutting off their shared mind link. They scream, bleed, shatter. Then Kale moves through them, Like a storm, he doesn't kill with rage, he kills with precision. The last seer begs. Kale leans in, whispers, "You taught me pain, let me return the lesson." Every world has a god. Kale came to kill one. The sky above Varric 9 cracked with thunder as ash fell like snow. The hollow cliffs smoldered behind him, collapsed, silenced, destroyed. Kale stood at the edge of the scorched valley, battered, bleeding, and very much alive. Razek's last message had broadcast planet-wide. "He burns our hives, he butchers our minds. Let him come to me." Alone, Kale answered with a limp, with a grin. With a knife, the warlord's fortress was carved into a canyon older than any empire labyrinth of spires, acid rivers, and statues made of conquered species. Above it all stood a single black tower, untouched by time or defeat. Kale made it. Halfway up before the first ambush, two elite guards, wrapped in silver exobone, dropped from the walls like spiders. Their blades crackled with plasma arcs. Kale didn't slow. He let the first strike pass his shoulder, used it to spin inside, drive his blade up through the alien's throat. The second lunge, Kale caught its wrist, twisted, and used the creature's own weight to snap its neck on the canyon wall. Two more. Done. The path was open. Flashback, Earth combat training. An instructor barks, "What do you do when the enemy's stronger, faster, and better equipped?" Kale, younger, still cocky, replies, "Take their strengths, turn them into targets." The instructor, "You'll die trying." Kale, "Then I'll die teaching." Inside the tower, the air was wrong. Heavy, each step up the spiral staircase felt like walking through mud. Whispers crawled over the stone, echoing from no mouth. Kale gritted his teeth and kept climbing. At the top, Warlord Razek waited. He was huge, part machine, part beast. All hatred. Black armor covered his body like a second skin. His skull was a war trophy etched with the names of the planets he had burned. He wielded a chain blade that hummed like a living thing. "You," Razek growled, "are a disease." Kale said nothing. He simply raised the knife. Kale darted left. Razek was faster. The chain blade screamed through the barely dodged, the blade slicing a gash down his back. He stumbled, rolled, came up with a throwing knife. It glanced off Razek's armor. Useless. Razek laughed. "You think a blade will stop a god?" Kale's eyes burned. "No, but I'll teach you how gods die." They clashed. Sparks fly with every impact of chain blade on stone. Kale moves like a ghost, ducking under swings, stabbing exposed joints, drawing blood with every cut. The tower begins to collapse around them, shuddering from the battle. Rain pours through the shattered ceiling, mixing with blood and ash. Kale is pinned, bleeding, exhausted. Razek raises his blade to finish him when Kale uses his last trick, the same plasma detonator he used at the Seer hive wired to his belt. "Say hello to the mines you silenced." He triggers it. Boom. The floor buckles. Razek stumbles. Kale lunges one final strike. His knife pierces through the warlord's chest, into the reactor core of his armor. The light in Razek's eyes fades. When a man becomes a myth, the stars themselves tremble. Smoke curled from the collapsed tower. The rain had washed most of the blood away, but the body of Warlord Razek remained sprawled in ruin. Half mechanical ribs, exposed, eyes still open in disbelief. Kale knelt nearby, leaning on his knife like a crutch. His arm was broken, his leg barely usable. 3 ribs were cracked, and his breathing came shallow, wheezing, but he was alive. Planet-wide silence. From the scorched deserts to the glacial poles, every being on Varric 9 stopped. The death of Razek the Invincible, the god tyrant, the Empire's blade was not broadcast. It was felt. A seismic psychic scream echoed through the alien hive means. The unity of flesh, the mind clans, the helix, seers all felt it, and they ran. At the edge of the canyon, a fleet hovered. The surviving factions had gathered to witness the fall or to ensure Kale died with Razek. Now they watched, unsure. A single figure limped from the rubble, dragging a warlord's head by one horn. Kale raised it high. Lightning split the sky behind him. And then he dropped it. The message was clear. "Come, take your god back." No one moved. Scene transition, Earth command, deep orbit. General Vera watched the live pulse feed through tears. "Is that?" "Yes, General, that's Kale. Still transmitting. Knife still in hand." Around her, silence, then thunderous cheering, across every screen on Earth and its colonies. A new symbol began to rise, a single human silhouette, a knife, across a burning world, and one word. "Remember." Back on Varric-9, Kale reached the cliff's edge and slumped to one knee. Behind him, scavengers began circling. Some wanted revenge. Others just wanted power. Now that Razek was gone, but none dared approach yet. Kale stabbed the knife into the ground. A final warning, then a sound, a low-frequency hum from above. He looked up. A dropship, Earth's insignia on the underbelly. Reinforcements, they had come. Bright blue thrusters slicing through the blackened skies, Earth Marines descending on jets, forming a protective circle around Kale. Bad drones scanning his body, patching critical wounds in real time. Kale waves them off. "Save it, I'm not done." Final confrontation. From the crowd, a single alien commander stepped forward. Tall, armored, with glowing eyes. You brought ruin, human, you murdered a world. Kale pulled the knife from the ground. No, I reminded it of consequences. The alien sneered. What will you do now? One knife can't change the galaxy. Kale looked at the dropship, then back at the army forming behind him. It already has ending sequence flash forward 1 year later. Statues of Kale erected on 3 moons. The Varick Empire collapsed into factions. Treaties rewritten. The galaxy afraid but listening. Earth no longer underestimated. In a secret Earth archive, Kale's knife is displayed behind glass. Etched beneath it, one man, one knife. One world changed.